Harvard University is a private Ivy League research university in Cambridge, Massachusetts, established 1636, whose history, influence and wealth have made it one of the most prestigious universities in the world. Established originally by the Massachusetts legislature and soon thereafter named for John Harvard, Harvard is the United States' oldest institution of higher learning, and the Harvard Corporation is its first chartered corporation. Although never formally affiliated with any denomination, the early college primarily trained Congregationalist and Unitarian clergy. Its curriculum and student body were gradually secularized during the 18th century, and by the 19th century, Harvard had emerged as the central cultural establishment among Boston elites. Following the American Civil War, President Charles W. Eliot's long tenure transformed the college and affiliated professional schools into a modern research university. Harvard was a founding member of the Association of American Universities in 1900. James Bryant Conant led the university through the Great Depression and World War II and began to reform the curriculum and liberalize admissions. After the war, the undergraduate college became coeducational after its 1977 merger with Radcliffe College. The university is organized into 11 separate academic units, 10 faculties and the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study, with campuses throughout the Boston metropolitan area. Its 209-acre main campus is centered on Harvard Yard in Cambridge, approximately 3 miles northwest of Boston. The business school and athletics facilities, including Harvard Stadium, are located across the Charles River in the Allston neighborhood of Boston, and the medical, dental, and public health schools are in the Longwood medical area. Harvard has the largest financial endowment of any academic institution in the world, standing at $36.4 billion. Harvard is a large, highly residential research university. The nominal cost of attendance is high, but the university's large endowment allows it to offer generous financial aid packages. It operates several arts, cultural, and scientific museums, alongside the Harvard Library, which is the world's largest academic and private library system, comprising 79 individual libraries with over 18 million volumes. Harvard's alumni include 8 U.S. presidents, several foreign heads of state, 62 living billionaires, 335 Rhodes Scholars, and 242 Marshall Scholars. To date, some 150 Nobel laureates and 5 Fields medalists have been affiliated as students, faculty, or staff. History. Colonial. Harvard was formed in 1636 by vote of the Great and General Court of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. It was initially called New College, or the College at Newtown. In 1638, the college became home for North America's first known printing press, carried by the ship John of London. In 1639, the college was renamed Harvard College after deceased clergyman John Harvard, who was an alumnus of the University of Cambridge. He had left the school £779 and his library of some 400 books. The charter creating the Harvard Corporation was granted in 1650. In the early years, the college trained many Puritan ministers. It offered a classic curriculum on the English university model. Many leaders in the colony had attended the University of Cambridge, but conformed Puritanism. It was never affiliated with any particular denomination, but many of its earliest graduates went on to become clergymen in Congregational and Unitarian churches. The leading Boston divine Increase Mather served as president from 1685 to 1701. In 1708, John Leverett became the first president who was not also a clergyman, which marked a turning of the college toward intellectual independence from Puritanism. 19th century. Throughout the 18th century, Enlightenment ideas of the power of reason and free will became widespread among Congregationalist ministers, putting those ministers and their congregations in tension with more traditionalist, Calvinist parties. When the Hollis Professor of Divinity David Tappan died in 1803 and the president of Harvard Joseph Willard died a year later, in 1804, a struggle broke out over their replacements. Henry Ware was elected to the chair in 1805, and the liberal Samuel Weber was appointed to the presidency of Harvard 2 years later, which signaled the changing of the tide from the dominance of traditional ideas at Harvard to the dominance of liberal, Arminian ideas. In 1846, the natural history lectures of Louis Agassiz were acclaimed both in New York and on the campus at Harvard College. Agassiz's approach was distinctly idealist and posited Americans' participation in the divine nature, and the possibility of understanding intellectual existences. Agassiz's perspective on science combined observation with intuition and the assumption that a person can grasp the divine plan in all phenomena. When it came to explaining life forms, Agassiz resorted to matters of shape based on a presumed archetype for his evidence. This dual view of knowledge was in concert with the teachings of common-sense realism derived from Scottish philosophers Thomas Reid and Dugald Stewart, whose works were part of the Harvard curriculum at the time. The popularity of Agassiz's efforts to soar with Plato probably also derived from other writings to which Harvard students were exposed, including Platonic treatises by Ralph Cudworth, John Norris and, in a romantic vein, Samuel Coleridge. The library records at Harvard reveal that the writings of Plato and his early modern and romantic followers were almost as regularly read during the 19th century as those of the official philosophy of the more empirical and more deistic Scottish school. Charles W. Eliot, President 1869–1909, eliminated the favored position of Christianity from the curriculum while opening it to student self-direction. While Eliot was the most crucial figure in the secularization of American higher education, he was motivated not by a desire to secularize education, but by transcendentalist Unitarian convictions, derived from William Ellery Channing and Ralph Waldo Emerson. These convictions were focused on the dignity and worth of human nature, the right and ability of each person to perceive truth, and the indwelling God in each person. 20th century. During the 20th century, Harvard's international reputation grew, as a burgeoning endowment and prominent professors expanded the university's scope. Rapid enrollment growth continued as new graduate schools were begun and the undergraduate college expanded. Radcliffe College, established in 1879 as sister school of Harvard College, became one of the most prominent schools for women in the United States. Harvard became a founding member of the Association of American Universities in 1900. In the early 20th century, the student body was predominantly old stock, high-status Protestants, especially Episcopalians, Congregationalists, and Presbyterians. A group later called WASPs reinvigorated creative scholarship to guarantee its preeminence among research institutions. He saw higher education as a vehicle of opportunity for the talented rather than an entitlement for the wealthy. So Conant devised programs to identify, recruit, and support talented youth. In 1943, he asked the faculty make a definitive statement about what general education ought to be, at the secondary as well as the college level. The resulting report, published in 1945, was one of the most influential manifestos in the history of American education in the 20th century. In 1945 to 1960, admissions policies were opened up to bring in students from a more diverse applicant pool, no longer drawing mostly from rich alumni of select New England prep schools. The undergraduate college was now open to striving middle-class students from public schools. Many more Jews and Catholics were admitted, but few blacks, Hispanics or Asians. Women remained segregated at Radcliffe, though more and more took Harvard classes. Nonetheless, Harvard's undergraduate population remained predominantly male, with about 4 men attending Harvard College for every woman studying at Radcliffe. Following the merger of Harvard and Radcliffe admissions in 1977, the proportion of female undergraduates steadily increased, mirroring a trend throughout higher education in the United States. Harvard's graduate schools, which had accepted females and other groups in greater numbers even before the college, also became more diverse in the post-World War II period. In 1999, Radcliffe College, founded in 1879 as the Harvard Annex for Women, merged formally with Harvard University, becoming the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study. 21st Century in 2006. Lawrence Summers resigned his presidency after suggesting that women's underrepresentation in top science positions was due to differences in intrinsic aptitude. Subsequently, Drew Gilpin-Faust, the dean at Radcliffe, became the first female president of Harvard in 2007. Campus. Harvard's 209-acre main campus is centered on Harvard Yard in Cambridge, about 3 miles west-northwest of the State House in downtown Boston, and extends into the surrounding Harvard Square neighborhood. Harvard Yard itself contains the central administrative offices and main libraries of the university. Academic buildings including Sever Hall and University Hall, Memorial Church, and the majority of the freshman dormitories. Sophomore, junior, and senior undergraduates live in 12 residential houses, 9 of which are south of Harvard Yard along or near the Charles River. The other 3 are located in a residential neighborhood half a mile northwest of the Yard at the Quadrangle, which formerly housed Radcliffe College students until Radcliffe merged its residential system with Harvard. Each residential house contains rooms for undergraduates, housemasters, and resident tutors, as well as a dining hall and library. The facilities were made possible by a gift from Yale University alumnus Edward Harkness. Radcliffe Yard, formerly the center of the campus of Radcliffe College, is adjacent to the Graduate School of Education and the Cambridge Common. The Harvard Business School and many of the university's athletics facilities, including Harvard Stadium, are located on a 358-acre campus opposite the Cambridge campus in Allston. The John W. Weeks Bridge is a pedestrian bridge over the Charles River connecting both campuses. The Harvard Medical School, Harvard School of Dental Medicine, and the Harvard School of Public Health are located on a 21-acre campus in the Longwood Medical and Academic Area approximately 3.3 miles southwest of downtown Boston and 3.3 miles south of the Cambridge campus. Between 2011 and 2013, Harvard University reported crime statistics for its main Cambridge campus that included 104 forcible sex offenses, 55 robberies, 83 aggravated assaults, 89 burglaries, and 43 cases of motor vehicle theft. Satellite facilities. Apart from its major Cambridge, Allston and Longwood campuses, Harvard owns and operates Arnold Arboretum in the Jamaica Plain area of Boston, the Dumbarton Oaks Research Library and Collection in Washington, D.C., the Harvard Forest in Petersham, Massachusetts, the Concord Field Station in Estabrook Woods in Concord, Massachusetts, and the Villa Itati Research Center in Florence, Italy. Harvard also operates the Harvard Shanghai Center in China. Major campus expansion. Harvard has purchased tracts of land in Allston, a walk across the Charles River from Cambridge, with the intent of major expansion southward. The university now owns approximately 50% more land in Allston than in Cambridge. Proposals to connect the Cambridge campus with the new Allston campus include new and enlarged bridges, a shuttle service or a tram. Plans also call for sinking part of Storrow Drive for replacement with parkland and pedestrian access to the Charles River, as well as the construction of bike paths and buildings throughout the Allston campus. The institution asserts that such expansion will benefit not only the school, but surrounding community. pointing to such features as the enhanced transit infrastructure, possible shuttles open to the public, and park space which will also be publicly accessible. One of the foremost driving forces for Harvard's pending expansion is its goal of increasing the scope and strength of its science and technology programs. The university plans to construct two 500,000-square-foot research complexes in Allston, which would be home to several interdisciplinary programs, including the Harvard Stem Cell Institute and an enlarged engineering department. In addition, Harvard intends to relocate the Harvard Graduate School of Education and the Harvard School of Public Health to Allston. The university also plans to construct several new undergraduate and graduate student housing centers in Allston, and it is considering large-scale museums and performing arts complexes as well. Organization and administration. Governance. The Faculty of Arts and Sciences has primary responsibility for instruction in Harvard College, Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and the Harvard Division of Continuing Education, which includes Harvard Summer School and Harvard Extension School. There is also the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study. Harvard is governed by a combination of its Board of Overseers and the President and Fellows of Harvard College, which in turn appoints the President of Harvard University. There are 16,000 staff and faculty. Harvard's 2,400 professors, lecturers, and instructors instruct 7,200 undergraduates and 14,000 graduate students. The school color is crimson, which is also the name of the Harvard sports teams and the daily newspaper, the Harvard Crimson. The color was unofficially adopted by an 1875 vote of the student body, although the association with some form of red can be traced back to 1858, when Charles William Eliot, a young graduate student who would later become Harvard's 21st and longest-serving president, bought red bandanas for his crew so they could more easily be distinguished by spectators at a regatta. Joint programs with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology include the Harvard MIT Division of Health Sciences and Technology, the Broad Institute, the Observatory of Economic Complexity, and EDX. Endowment. Harvard has the largest university endowment in the world. As of September 2011, update, it had nearly regained the loss suffered during the 2008 recession. It was worth $32 billion in 2011, up from $28 billion in September 2010 and $26 billion in 2009. It suffered about 30% loss in 2008-09. In December 2008, Harvard announced that its endowment had lost 22% from July to October 2008, necessitating budget cuts. Later reports suggest the loss was actually more than double that figure, a reduction of nearly 50% of its endowment in the first 4 months alone. Forbes in March 2009 estimated the loss to be in the range of $12 billion. One of the most visible results of Harvard's attempt to rebalance its budget was their halting of construction of the $1.2 billion Allston Science Complex that had been scheduled to be completed by 2011, resulting in protests from local residents. As of 2012, update, Harvard University had a total financial aid reserve of $159 million for students, and a Pell Grant reserve of $4.093 million available for disbursement. Divestment. Since the 1970s, several campaigns have sought to divest Harvard's endowment from holdings the campaigns opposed, including investments in apartheid South Africa, the tobacco industry, Sudan during the Darfur genocide, and the fossil fuel industry. During the divestment from South Africa movement in the late 1980s, student activists erected a symbolic shanty town on Harvard Yard and blockaded a speech given by South African Vice Consul Duke Kent Brown. The Harvard Management Company repeatedly refused to divest. stating that operating expenses must not be subject to financially unrealistic strictures or carping by the unsophisticated or by special interest groups. However, the university did eventually reduce its South African holdings by $230 million in response to the pressure.